The briefcase by the shore. The sun hung low over the Pacific, casting long shadows across the weathered pier where little Emma stood, her pink dress catching the golden light of dusk. At 6 years old, she didn't understand everything about grown-up problems, but she understood enough to know that the briefcase full of money sitting 5 feet away could save her grandmother's life, and that taking it would make her a thief. "It's not mine," Emma shouted into the wind, her small voice breaking with frustration and grief. The words felt like they were being ripped from her chest, a desperate declaration to God, to the universe, to whoever had placed this terrible choice in front of a child who still believed in fairy tales and happy endings. The briefcase sat there on the sand, partially open, revealing stacks of $100 bills that seemed to mock her with their green faces. The leather was expensive, worn but well cared for, the kind of thing a businessman might carry, or a criminal. Emma couldn't tell the difference, and at this moment she wasn't sure it mattered. 3 months ago, everything had changed. Grandma Rose had collapsed in her garden while tending to her beloved roses, the ones she'd named after all her grandchildren. Emma's rose was pink, like her favorite dress, the one she was wearing now, the last birthday gift Grandma had given her before the world fell apart. The stroke had been massive. The hospital bills had started arriving like a relentless storm, each envelope another nail in the coffin of their family's stability. Emma's father had taken on a second job, working nights at the warehouse after his day shift at the factory. Dark circles had settled permanently under his eyes, and he'd stopped smiling. Her mother had started cleaning houses on weekends, her hands red and cracked from chemicals, her spirit slowly breaking under the weight of impossible choices. But it wasn't enough. It was never enough. The numbers were astronomical, $287,000 for the surgery Grandma needed, plus the ongoing care at the rehabilitation facility. Their insurance company had denied the claim, citing a pre-existing condition clause buried in the fine print that might as well have been written in a foreign language. Emma's parents couldn't afford a lawyer to fight it. They could barely afford groceries. Emma had heard them talking last Tuesday night, their voices carrying through the thin walls of their small apartment above the laundromat on 5th Street. She'd gotten out of bed for water and frozen in the hallway, her bare feet cold on the linoleum. "We have to make a decision, Tom," her mother had said, her voice hollow with exhaustion. The facility called again. "We're 3 months behind. They're going to discharge her." "Discharge her where, Linda? Where is she supposed to go?" Her father's voice had cracked. "She can't walk, she can't feed herself, she needs round-the-clock care." "I know that." Her mother's sob had cut through the apartment like broken glass. "But we can't afford it. We've drained our savings, we've maxed out every credit card. The bank denied our loan application. What else can we do?" The silence that followed was worse than the shouting. We might have to let her go, Linda," the doctors said without the surgery. "She's only got a few months anyway. Maybe it's more humane to—" "Don't say it. Please don't say it." But Emma had heard enough. She'd crawled back to bed and cried into her pillow, making no sound, the way she'd learned to do since money became the only thing adults talked about. That's when Emma had started walking. She walked every day after school, along this same stretch of beach where Grandma used to take her to collect seashells. She'd talk to Grandma as if she were there, tell her about her day, about the kids at school, about how much she missed her cookies and her hugs and the way she sang old songs while washing dishes. And she prayed, to God, to angels, to the universe, to anyone who might be listening. "Please," she whispered each afternoon as the sun set over the water, "please save my grandma. Please send a miracle. I'll be good forever. I'll never ask for anything else. Just please, please let her live." Today, when she'd come to her usual spot, the briefcase had been there, just sitting on the sand near the old pier pilings, as if someone had placed it there specifically for her to find, as if God had finally answered her prayers. But this wasn't how miracles were supposed to work, was it? Emma had approached it carefully, looking around for whoever might have left it. The beach was empty except for a few surfers in the distance and a couple walking their dog far down the shore. She'd knelt beside it, her heart pounding, and lifted the lid. Money. More money than she'd ever seen in her life, neat stacks of bills bound with paper bands. She'd pulled out her phone, the cheap one her parents had given her for emergencies, and opened the calculator app with trembling fingers. If each stack was $10,000, and there were about 30 stacks, $300,000. Enough to save Grandma, enough to pay off the medical bills, afford the surgery, keep her in the facility, enough to make her parents stop crying, to bring back her father's smile, to heal her mother's cracked hands because she wouldn't have to work herself to death anymore. All Emma had to do was take it. But somewhere in her 6-year-old heart, in the place where Grandma's lessons about right and wrong still lived, Emma knew this wasn't her money. Someone had lost it, or left it here, or maybe something worse. Maybe it belonged to bad people doing bad things. Maybe taking it would make her bad too. "It's not mine," she said again, louder this time, as if saying it enough would make the temptation go away. She thought about what Grandma would say. Grandma Rose, who'd once walked a mile in the rain to return a $20 bill the grocery store cashier had accidentally given her as change. Grandma, who'd taught Emma that being poor didn't mean being dishonest, that your word was worth more than gold, that how you got something mattered just as much as having it. "But Grandma, you're dying," Emma whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "And this could save you. Wouldn't you want me to save you?" The wind picked up, carrying the salt smell of the ocean and the cry of gulls. The setting sun turned everything gold and red, beautiful and terrible at the same time. Emma looked at the briefcase, then at her picnic basket, the one with the faded flowers that Grandma had used for their beach trips, now Emma's most treasured possession. She could take it. She could close the briefcase, carry it home, and give her parents the miracle they needed. She could save Grandma's life. No one would ever know. The beach was empty. There were no cameras out here, no witnesses, just a little girl and a briefcase full of salvation. But she would know. Emma sank to her knees in the sand, her small body shaking with sobs. It wasn't fair. None of it was fair. Why did being good have to hurt so much? Why did doing the right thing mean losing the person she loved most in the world? Why couldn't the universe just let her save her grandmother without making her choose between love and honor? "I hate you," she screamed at the sky, at God, at whatever cruel force had placed this choice in front of a child. "I hate you for making me choose. It's not fair. She's good. She deserves to live. Why won't you just save her without making me steal?" The sun continued its descent, indifferent to her pain. The waves crashed against the shore, eternal and uncaring. And Emma knelt there in her pink dress, caught between the innocent faith that had made her believe in prayers and miracles, and the brutal lesson that sometimes the universe doesn't answer, no matter how much you beg. She stayed there until the sky turned purple, until the first stars appeared, until the cold started, seeping into her bones. She stayed there hoping someone would come for the briefcase, the rightful owner who would claim it and take this impossible choice away from her. But no one came. Finally, as darkness settled over the beach, Emma stood up. Her legs were stiff, her face was salt-crusted from tears and sea spray, and her heart felt like it had aged decades in the past hour. She picked up her grandmother's picnic basket and looked one last time at the briefcase full of money that could change everything. Then she turned and walked away, leaving it sitting there on the sand, because Grandma had taught her that some things were more important than money. That integrity wasn't something you could buy back once you'd sold it. That the person you became by making hard choices mattered more than the outcomes of those choices. As Emma trudged back toward the parking lot where her father would be waiting to pick her up, she didn't feel noble or good. She felt hollow and broken, like she'd failed the most important test of her life. She felt like she'd chosen principle over love, and the weight of that choice was crushing her small shoulders. She didn't see the man in the dark SUV watching from the parking lot, who'd been waiting to see what the little girl would do with the briefcase he'd deliberately left there as a test. She didn't see him pick up his phone, make a call, or see the slight smile on his face as he spoke to whoever was on the other end. She didn't see any of it because she was 6 years old and heartbroken, walking away from a miracle because her grandmother had taught her that stolen miracles weren't miracles at all. They were just sins dressed up in desperation. 2 days later, Emma's mother answered a knock at their apartment door. A lawyer stood there with papers, an anonymous donation to cover all of Grandma Rose's medical expenses, the surgery, the rehabilitation, everything. No strings attached, no explanation provided. But Emma, looking at the briefcase, the lawyer carried, recognized the worn leather and the specific pattern of scuffs on the corner, and she finally understood that sometimes the universe does answer prayers, just not in the way you expect, and not until you've proven you deserve the answer by making the right choice when no one is watching. Grandma Rose had her surgery 3 weeks later. She lived another 8 years, long enough to see Emma graduate from middle school, long enough to teach her how to make her famous cookies, long enough to be proven right about integrity being worth more than gold. And every year on the anniversary of that day on the beach, Emma returned to that same spot, looking out at the sunset, remembering the hardest choice she'd ever made, and whispering thank you to the wind.